Hello, my name is Anne. This is going to be the first video of a series on my channel called Inner Child Healing. This is where my focus has been for at least 4 years. Prior to that, I was a psychologist for many decades, life coach and healer. But this is where I believe most of us need attention on the inner child. And I'll explain why shortly. I would like to convey as much of what I've learned to you through these series of video. First, what is the inner child? The inner child is a part of us that God created when we experience trauma in our early years, even possibly while we were in the womb. In the womb, we were exposed to our mother, biologically, biochemically connected to her. So there are a lot of influences that we were subjected to, and some of them may not have been pleasant. So we responded in a way that trauma creates. So when something jarring happens, we react. Similarly, when something happens to mother, biochemically she reacts, and that's in your blood, in your biochemistry. But something we can relate to more, you can relate to more, would be being a baby or a young child in your family. You know your family history and can see how you may have felt traumatized. Some of you may have been adopted. That's a trauma, being separated from your birth mother, and in being connected to her and her thoughts and her emotions. You were probably affected by the impending separation from what she was thinking and feeling. For others, you were born earlier than some siblings. So when your siblings came along, for example, my twin sisters were born 2 years and 3 months after me. That changed my world, you can be sure. And that's what I think is the earliest trauma that I can relate to. Others have reported how a sibling became sick or even died, sick with polio, and died suddenly on the night of her confirmation day. Those are events that create such a shock to the young child. It separates him or her from what was happening before. So if you were well cared for and attended to, a shock like an illness or death in the family would change the feeling in the family. Or if your mother became ill or had to go away for some reason, and she was absent, you would be in the arms of a relative stranger, separated from what you knew before. So the trauma is all about separation. Separation is what kept you safe, feeling comfortable, protected, cared for, and loved. And the trauma can occur unintentionally on the caregiver's part or out of their control, like illness and such absences. So, whatever it is for you may not remember. And maybe only the stories in your family will tell you. When trauma occurs, a part is created, what I call the inner child. You will learn as you go through this video and through others that besides working with the inner child with my own method, I use a method called MAP, Manifest All Possibility, or Make Anything Possible. What this process method has as a point of view is similar. When a trauma occurs, a young part is created to deal with what was traumatizing. So the young part would hide pain, have huge reactions of anger, fear, and grief in various forms. And because the child is alone, he or she hides these reactions, believing that they're too overwhelming for the young part child to survive. So these are hidden in the heart, and the inner child holds that in the inner heart. The inner child buries, the parts bury these intense negative feelings and memories. Now, the problem with this method of survival is that the young parts don't go away and they get triggered and show up in your adult life. So we call these emotional triggers, I do, as cries from the heart. I wrote a book 3 or 4 years ago on that topic about learning to be attuned to the cries of your heart. So what do I mean by this? As an adult, you may react strongly or have a chronic reaction to certain situations. For example, in moving into anything new, be it new responsibility, a new relationship, any kind of situation that puts you into the unknown, you may be triggered by fear because the young child, being very vulnerable and alone, didn't know how he or she would cope and deal with the unknown, the new situation. So fear is natural. Fear that activates the body in terms of the sympathetic nervous system, where flight or fight is activated. And this is what causes stress, by the way, which we can deal shortly with. In any case, unknown or different situations will trigger fear that may be a sign of the young part reacting in fear. Another response is anger. When someone doesn't show up for a date or appointment, or some friend or your spouse deals with you in a way that doesn't meet your needs and you feel rejected. You expected them to be sympathetic and kind, but they responded in their own way, possibly with a fix-it mentality, afraid of your emotions, so they wanted to go away, so they try to analyze and fix the situation. And this can stir a reaction of upsetness. So if it's not anger or fear, upsetness or distress would be a way that you would be registering the sign of an inner child or a part. The reactions, whether intense or not, depends on how you have managed these feelings. If you use suppression or repression, you block it. You put it out of your awareness so they don't bother you. However, if you just kind of muted them, the fears show up as worries, So you may not know fear, but you do know worries. Worries that come from the past that you were in a similar situation, and here you anticipate, because of its similarity, that bad things are going to happen. So this is how fears get activated every day. Anger may also be muted so that you may be frustrated, a little irritated, annoyed, disappointed. These are little signs, but they actually may be triggers, because what the young child is experiencing in terms of anger is a tantrum, big or small, that's going, no, I want what I want, and you're telling me I can't get it. And this tantrum you can have as a 3-year-old, but society and parents teach you to hide those tantrums. And if you follow the prohibitions, the rules, you hit your anger, your no. So they become only muted in these quiet signs of anger. But the important thing is anger shows you what you were denied, what your heart needed, and someone said no, the situation said no. It's important to embrace fear and embrace anger, so you know the needs of your heart.